Jack Sullivan froze at his wife's grave, the bouquet of white lilies suspended in mid-air. A small girl, no more than 5, knelt at the headstone, her tiny fingers tracing Olivia's name, whispering secrets to the marble as if it could hear. The cemetery had always been silent, sacred, but never like this. "Daddy?" The child looked up, dark eyes wide with recognition for a man she'd never met. "Mommy said you'd find me if I waited here long enough." Martha, the elderly groundskeeper, dropped her pruning shears with a clatter that echoed across the silent rows of headstones. "Lord have mercy," she whispered, crossing herself. Jack's dog tags felt suddenly cold against his chest, the same tags Olivia had kissed before every deployment, promising to keep them warm until he returned. "Who are you?" he managed, though his soldier's instinct already recognized the truth in her familiar eyes. What impossible miracle was this, and why had Olivia kept her greatest secret buried with her for 3 long years? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. The Arlington National Cemetery stretched before Jack Sullivan like a sea of white stones, each one a story, each one a sacrifice. At 38, Jack had expected to visit only as a mourner, never imagining he'd find himself at the center of a mystery that would shake the very foundation of the life he'd built from broken pieces. 3 years had passed since Olivia's funeral. 3 years of empty apartments and take-out dinners, of security consulting work that kept his hands busy while his mind wandered back to Afghanistan, to the convoy, the explosion, the moment everything changed. The Army Rangers had trained him for ambushes, for firefights, for the worst humanity could offer. They hadn't trained him for the words that came after recovery: severe trauma to the reproductive system, and extremely low probability of fathering children. Jack ran his hand over the short military cut he still maintained out of habit. The physical scars had faded to silvery lines across his torso, but the invisible wounds, those had driven him to walk away from Olivia. He remembered her face when he told her he was leaving, giving her the chance at the family she deserved. "I won't trap you in a marriage that can never give you children," he had said, believing it was the honorable thing to do. Olivia Bennett Sullivan had been a combat nurse when they met, tough as nails with a laugh that could cut through the heaviest firefight. They'd fallen in love between medevac helicopters and field hospitals, married on leave with sand still in their boots. She'd deserved better than a broken man. After the divorce, Jack had moved across the country, changed his number, severed all connections. A clean break, he'd thought, kinder that way. Now, looking down at the small girl with Olivia's eyes and his stubborn chin, Jack felt the world shift beneath his feet. "Her name is Emma," Martha Wilson said, her 72 years etched in the lines around her eyes as she approached. "She's been coming every Thursday for months now, always alone, always talking to that stone like it's listening." The old woman's weathered hands twisted around the handle of her pruning shears. "I've been keeping an eye on her, giving her cookies when she looks hungry. Some folks from that children's center down in Meadowbrook drop her off and pick her up. Never the same person twice, which struck me as mighty peculiar." Jack knelt down to Emma's level, careful to move slowly. "How did you know who I am?" he asked gently. Emma reached into the pocket of her worn blue dress and pulled out a folded photograph, a younger Jack in uniform, arm around Olivia, Afghan mountains in the background. "Mommy kept you under her pillow," she said simply. "She told me you were a hero who had to go away, but someday you'd come back when I needed you most." Behind them, a black SUV pulled up to the cemetery gates. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped out, his face hardening when he spotted Emma. "That's Mr. Colton," Emma whispered, suddenly clutching Jack's hand. "He doesn't like when I talk about Mommy." Richard Colton moved with the calculated precision of a man accustomed to control. His tailored suit and silver-streaked hair projected authority as he strode through the cemetery gates, flanked by a woman in a bland pantsuit who kept her eyes downcast. Emma? Colton called, his voice carrying a warmth that didn't reach his eyes. Time to go, sweetheart. Miss Jenkins has been looking everywhere for you. Jack felt the child's small hand tighten around his fingers. Even without his years of reading body language in high-stakes situations, Emma's fear was unmistakable. I'm Jack Sullivan, he said, standing to his full height, a habit from countless confrontations in dangerous places. I was just introducing myself. I'm Olivia's ex-husband, Colton finished smoothly. Yes, I'm familiar with Mrs. Bennett's history. I'm Richard Colton, director of Meadowbrook Children's Center, where Emma has been residing since her mother's unfortunate passing. He extended a manicured hand. A pleasure to meet you, though the circumstances are unusual. Jack shook the offered hand, noting the excessive firmness of Colton's grip, another power play. Unusual is one word for it. Emma here seems to think I'm her father. A tight smile crossed Colton's face. Children create fantasies to cope with loss. Emma was only 2 when her mother died. We've been working through her attachment issues in therapy. The woman, Ms. Jenkins, finally approached. Come along, Emma. We have your afternoon activities waiting. She reached for the child, but Emma edged behind Jack's legs. I don't want to go, she whispered. Please, Daddy. Something in Jack's chest constricted at the word. He looked down at Emma, then at the headstone where Olivia's name was etched in cold marble. The dates told their own story. She had died 3 years ago, less than 4 years after their separation. Mr. Sullivan, Colton said, his voice dropping to a confidential tone, I understand this is confusing, but I am Emma's legal guardian. There's extensive documentation, including Mrs. Bennett's wishes that her daughter be cared for at Meadowbrook should anything happen to her. Jack noticed Emma's hand move to her collar, where a butterfly-shaped hairpin gleamed in the afternoon sun, identical to one he'd bought for Olivia in a small market in Kandahar. The coincidence was too specific to dismiss. I'd like to see that documentation, Jack said, military instincts kicking in. And I'd appreciate a chance to speak with Emma again. Colton's expression hardened momentarily before the professional smile returned. Of course. Why don't you come by Meadowbrook tomorrow, say 2 o'clock? We can discuss this properly in my office. Before Jack could respond, Miss Jenkins had firmly taken Emma's hand. The child looked back over her shoulder as they led her away, her eyes wide with silent pleading. That's not right, Martha murmured beside him. That child's been coming here for months, talking about her mother, never once mentioned any Mr. Colton until recently, and she's scared of him, plain as day. Jack watched the black SUV pull away, memorizing the license plate automatically. How long have you worked here, Martha? The elderly woman straightened with pride. 42 years come November. Started when my Gerald was laid to rest here after Vietnam. Figured I'd stay close to him. Did you know Olivia? Did you ever see her with Emma? Martha shook her head. Can't say I did. But that child, she knows things only family would know. Brings white lilies on the first Thursday of each month because those were Mommy's favorite. Talks about a butterfly pin her Mommy always wore. She nodded toward the grave. Nobody comes to tend this plot except you and that little girl. Jack knelt at Olivia's headstone, tracing the engraved letters. The military precision of the rows of white markers had always given him comfort, order amid chaos. Now that order felt like a facade. I need to know what happened to you, Liv, he whispered, and what you were trying to tell me through her. The following afternoon, Jack drove through the ornate gates of Meadowbrook Children's Center. The facility sprawled across manicured grounds, its red brick buildings projecting stability and tradition. A discreet plaque noted its founding in 1976 for the care and education of exceptional children. Jack had spent the night researching. Meadowbrook had an impeccable reputation, generous funding, and a board stacked with influential names. Richard Colton had been director for 15 years, arriving after a distinguished career in child psychology. On paper, everything was perfect. Too perfect. The receptionist directed Jack to a waiting area filled with awards and photographs of smiling children. Many showed Colton with various dignitaries, including Senator William Blackwood, whose campaign materials prominently featured his commitment to protecting America's children. "Mr. Sullivan?" A young woman with tired eyes and a lab coat appeared. "I'm Dr. Sarah Reynolds. Mr. Colton asked me to give you a tour before your meeting." Jack rose, extending his hand. "You work with Emma?" "I work with several of our residents," she replied carefully. "I was also a colleague of Olivia's. She was our head nurse before—" Dr. Reynolds paused. "Before the accident." "Olivia worked here?" Jack hadn't expected this connection. Dr. Reynolds nodded, leading him down a corridor lined with children's artwork. For almost 5 years, she was exceptional with the children. She stopped at a colorful drawing signed Emma in wobbly letters. Emma has her mother's gift for connecting with people. The drawing showed a house with butterfly-shaped windows and 3 stick figures, a woman with yellow hair, a small girl, and a taller figure in green. "Is that supposed to be me?" Jack asked, pointing to the green figure. Dr. Reynolds glanced around before answering. "Emma calls him the soldier. She's been drawing him since she was 3. She lowered her voice. "Mr. Sullivan, our meeting is being recorded. Mr. Colton monitors all interactions with visitors." Jack nodded slightly, understanding the warning. "Impressive security for a children's center." "We care for many children from sensitive backgrounds," she replied, professional tone returning as they approached a glass-walled playroom. Inside, about a dozen children engaged in structured activities with supervisors. Emma sat alone at a small table, carefully arranging colored blocks in precise patterns. She looked up as if sensing their presence, her face brightening momentarily before a supervisor redirected her attention. "Emma is extraordinarily intelligent," Dr. Reynolds said. "She taught herself to read at 3, memorizes complex patterns, and shows remarkable recall ability." "Like her mother," Jack murmured. Olivia had possessed a near-photographic memory, invaluable for a combat nurse remembering medication dosages under pressure. They continued toward Colton's office, passing through a keycard-secured door into a quieter administrative wing. Jack noted the security cameras positioned at each intersection, more extensive than many military installations he'd consulted for. "Dr. Reynolds," Jack said quietly as they walked, "did Olivia ever mention me to you?" The doctor's step faltered briefly. "She kept her personal life private, but she wore dog tags that weren't hers." "I assume they belonged to someone important." Before Jack could press further, they reached Colton's office. The director rose from behind an imposing desk, gesturing toward a leather chair. "Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. That will be all." Jack waited until the door closed. "I'd like to see Emma's birth certificate." Colton's smile tightened. "Direct, aren't you? Military habit, I suppose." He opened a folder on his desk. Emma Grace Bennett, born May 12, 7 years ago at Mercy General. Mother, Olivia Bennett. Father, not listed. He slid the document across the desk. Jack examined the certificate. The timing aligned. Emma would have been conceived shortly before he left Olivia. But why wouldn't Olivia have listed him as the father? And why wouldn't she have told him about the pregnancy? "I'd also like to see the guardianship papers," Jack said. Colton produced another document, a power of attorney signed by Olivia, granting him guardianship of Emma in the event of her death. The signature looked like Olivia's, but something about it struck Jack as off. "As you can see, everything is in order," Colton said. Now, I understand your curiosity after such an unexpected encounter, but Emma is a vulnerable child. Her therapists caution against introducing confusion into her life. I'd like to arrange a proper visit with her, Jack insisted. Colton leaned back, steepling his fingers. Perhaps a supervised visit could be arranged next week. But Mr. Sullivan, I must be frank. Any claim you might think you have to Emma would be extraordinarily difficult to prove after so many years of no contact. Jack felt his jaw tighten. I wasn't aware of her existence until yesterday. A convenient claim, but legally irrelevant, Colton replied. Abandonment is abandonment, whether you knew of her or not. As Jack left Meadowbrook, the weight of unanswered questions pressed down on him. In the parking lot, he noticed Dr. Reynolds hurrying toward her car. Dr. Reynolds, he called out, approaching her. I need to understand what's happening here. She glanced nervously toward the building. I can't talk here. There's a coffee shop called Marigold's 3 blocks east of Arlington Cemetery. Tomorrow, noon. She quickly got into her car and drove away. Jack made one more stop before heading home. At Arlington, Martha was trimming roses near Olivia's grave. Thought you might come back, she said, not looking up from her work. That little girl left something for you. She pointed to a small rock on top of the headstone. Said it was a special message. Made me promise not to move it. Jack picked up the smooth stone. On its underside, drawn in a child's hand with what looked like crayon, was a butterfly with a star inside it. Did Olivia have a butterfly pin with a star? He asked. Martha nodded slowly. Saw it once when she came to plan this plot. Said it was from Afghanistan. Called it her North Star. Said it always led her home. The pin had been a gift from Jack. Bought from an old Afghan man who claimed the star inside the butterfly's wing would protect the wearer and guide lost loved ones back together. Jack had thought it superstitious nonsense, but Olivia had treasured it. Martha, when does Emma usually come here? Thursdays, round about 3. Sometimes they bring her, sometimes she just appears. I give her cookies, let her talk to her mama. Martha straightened, fixing Jack with a steady gaze. That child belongs with you. I've seen enough in my years to know when something ain't right. Jack slipped the stone into his pocket. I'm beginning to think the same thing. Marigold's coffee shop sat tucked between a bookstore and a tailor shop, its faded awning and mismatched furniture suggesting the kind of place that valued regulars over Instagram aesthetics. Jack arrived 20 minutes early, choosing a corner table with clear sight lines to both the entrance and the emergency exit, old habits that had kept him alive in combat zones. The DNA testing center had promised results within 72 hours with the expedited fee he'd paid. Jack had called in a favor from an old Army buddy who now worked at a private lab, bypassing the usual waiting period. The swab sample had come from Emma's discarded juice box that Martha had saved for him, the elderly groundskeeper proving herself a surprisingly willing accomplice. Sarah Reynolds arrived precisely at noon, her lab coat exchanged for a plain blouse and jeans. She ordered tea before sliding into the seat across from Jack, her hands fidgeting with a paper napkin. I shouldn't be here, she said, voice barely above a whisper. If Richard found out, but you are here, Jack replied, which tells me you have something important to say about Emma. About Olivia. Sarah glanced around before reaching into her bag. She slid a small, worn photo across the table. It showed Olivia in scrubs, her blonde hair pulled back, arm around a pregnant colleague. The butterfly pin gleamed on her lapel. This was taken about 6 years ago during her baby shower. Olivia was 7 months pregnant then. Sarah tapped the photo. She never said who the father was, but I remember when she found out she was pregnant. She was shocked. Said something about medical tests being wrong. Jack felt his chest tighten. The doctors told me after my injury that I couldn't father children. It's why I left her. I thought I was giving her a chance at the family she deserved. She tried to find you, Sarah said. Hired a private investigator, but you'd disappeared completely. New number, new address, no social media. She told me once that you were very good at going ghost when you wanted to. Jack's throat constricted. Ranger training had taught him to be untraceable, a skill that had apparently worked too well. What happened to her, Sarah? The official report says car accident, but... Sarah's eyes darted to the door again. It wasn't right. Olivia was a careful driver, always wore her seatbelt, and she'd been nervous those last few weeks, looking over her shoulder, keeping Emma close. What changed? Why was she afraid? She discovered something at Meadowbrook. I don't know exactly what, but it involved the special international education program. She started staying late, accessing files, making copies. Sarah's voice dropped even lower. 2 days before the accident, she came to my apartment, left a safety deposit box key with me, and made me promise that if anything happened to her, I'd wait a year and then find a way to access her records. Did you? She shook her head. The day after she died, someone broke into my apartment. They took the key, but didn't find the box number and address. I'd hidden that separately. By the time I got up the courage to go, the bank said the box had been emptied by someone with the proper authorization. Jack's military mind was connecting dots, forming a tactical picture. Olivia was investigating something at Meadowbrook, something dangerous enough that someone silenced her. Sarah nodded. After her death, Richard personally took over Emma's care, said it was because the child needed special attention due to her exceptional intelligence. But he watches her constantly, restricts her interactions with other staff. The only freedom she gets is those cemetery visits, and I think he only allows those because a total lockdown would raise questions. Why are you telling me this now? It's been 3 years. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she lifted her teacup. 2 weeks ago, I overheard Richard on the phone. He was discussing Emma's transfer to the international program, the same program Olivia was investigating. She met Jack's eyes directly. Once children enter that program, they disappear. Their files are sealed, and they never return to Meadowbrook. A cold stillness settled over Jack, the familiar calm that preceded combat. When is this transfer supposed to happen? 21 days from now. June 14th. The countdown had begun. Jack's phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. Results ready for pickup. I need to go, he told Sarah. Is there a way I can contact you securely? She wrote an email address on a napkin. Use this. It's not connected to anything else. She stood to leave, then hesitated. Mr. Sullivan, if you're planning to challenge Richard legally, be prepared. He has powerful friends, including Senator Blackwood, who chairs the committee that oversees international adoption and children's welfare programs. I'm not planning a legal challenge, Jack replied evenly. I'm planning a rescue mission. An hour later, Jack sat in his truck outside the lab, staring at the document in his hands. The clinical language couldn't obscure the essential truth. Probability of paternity, 99.998%. Emma was unquestionably his daughter. The revelation struck him with physical force. He had a child, a daughter. All these years, while he'd been drowning in regret and isolation, Olivia had been raising their daughter alone, and now Emma was in danger, held by people who had likely killed her mother to protect their secrets. Jack started the engine, mind racing through options. He needed more intelligence, more resources. Most of all, he needed allies. His first call was to Michael Brooks, his former squad mate who'd traded his rifle for a law degree after 2 tours. Brooks had helped Jack set up his security consulting business and remained one of his few connections to his past life. I need everything you can find on Meadowbrook Children's Center and Richard Colton, Jack explained after laying out the situation. And I need to understand my legal standing as Emma's biological father when I've been absent for her entire life." "Jesus, Jack," Michael breathed. "This is a lot. Legally, you're in a tough spot. No established relationship with the child, no prior acknowledgement of paternity. The DNA will help, but courts move slowly, much slower than 3 weeks." "That's not acceptable," Jack said flatly. "I know, brother. I know." Michael paused. "There's something else you should know. I did some initial digging after your call last night. Meadowbrook's board includes some heavy hitters, including 3 federal judges and Senator Blackwood's wife." Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "So the system is stacked against me." "Not completely. Let me make some calls, pull some files. Meanwhile, you need to establish as much contact with Emma as possible. Document everything. If Colton blocks access, that works in our favor." Jack's next stop was Arlington again. This time he brought a small teddy bear wearing Army fatigues, a silent message for Emma if she returned. Martha took it with a knowing nod, promising to pass it along at the next Thursday visit. "That child has your eyes," she said firmly. "Known it from the first time I saw her. Some things you just recognize, plain as day." "Did Olivia ever say anything to you? Any message or warning?" Martha considered this, leaning on her rake. "Not directly. But about a month before she died, she asked me if I believed guardian angels were real. Said she needed to know someone would watch over her little girl if she couldn't." The elderly woman's eyes misted. "I told her I'd been watching over my Gerald for 40 years, and I'd keep an eye on her little one too, if need be." Jack felt a surge of gratitude toward this unexpected ally. "You've been her guardian angel, Martha. Done what I could. That little girl deserves better than whatever game they're playing with her over at that fancy center." Martha glanced around before lowering her voice. "There's something else. Sometimes she comes with different people, not just the official escorts. Last month, a woman came with her, nervous little thing, kept looking over her shoulder. Told me if a man ever came asking about Emma, I should tell him to check the butterfly book." "The butterfly book. Did she explain what that meant?" Martha shook her head. "That's all she said before hurrying off." But Emma mentioned once that her mommy read her a special butterfly story every night before the bad man came. Another piece of the puzzle. Jack needed to find that book. The following day, Jack returned to Meadowbrook for his scheduled supervised visit with Emma. The meeting room was clinically sterile, beige walls, uncomfortable chairs, and a two-way mirror that made no pretense about the observation taking place. Emma entered clutching a drawing pad, her steps hesitant until she saw Jack. Then her face lit up with a smile so like Olivia's it made his chest ache. "You came back," she said, climbing into the chair across from him. "I promised I would," Jack replied. "I always keep my promises." The social worker supervising the visit, not Sarah Reynolds but a stone-faced woman who introduced herself as Ms. Porter, sat in the corner, clipboard in hand. "You have 30 minutes, Mr. Sullivan." Jack turned his attention to Emma. "I like your butterfly pin." "It's very special, isn't it?" Emma nodded solemnly. "Mommy gave it to me before she went to heaven. She said as long as I have it, I'll always find my way home." She leaned forward, whispering, "I'm not supposed to talk about Mommy here. Mr. Colton doesn't like it." Jack kept his expression neutral, conscious of their observer. "What do you like to draw, Emma?" In response, she opened her sketchbook and pushed it toward him. The top page showed a butterfly with intricate patterns inside its wings, far more detailed than most 5-year-olds could manage. But as Jack carefully turned the pages, he realized each butterfly contained hidden images, numbers, letters, and small pictures incorporated into the wing patterns. One drawing showed a butterfly with what looked like a book inside its wings. Another had what might be a key or a lock. A third contained what appeared to be a small house or building inside an elaborate spiral pattern. "These are beautiful," Jack said. "You're very talented," Emma beamed. Mommy taught me to draw special butterflies. She said they hold secrets that only special people can see. Ms. Porter cleared her throat. Emma, why don't you show Mr. Sullivan the puzzle you completed yesterday? The child obediently reached for a folder, but as she did, she slipped a folded paper from her sleeve into Jack's hand beneath the table. Her eyes met his, a silent plea not to reveal the exchange. Jack casually put his hand in his pocket, securing the note. I'd love to see your puzzle. The rest of the visit passed with superficial conversation, games, and drawings, all under Mrs. Porter's watchful eye. When their time was up, Emma surprised everyone by suddenly hugging Jack tightly. Will you come back? She whispered against his shoulder. Wild horses couldn't keep me away, he promised, the old phrase his father had used with him as a child coming naturally to his lips. Outside in his truck, Jack carefully unfolded Emma's note. In a child's handwriting were the words, Butterfly book in Mommy's special place. Mr. Colton has bad plans. Please hurry. Jack stared at the paper, heart pounding. Emma knew something was wrong. She was trying to help him, just as Olivia had apparently prepared her to do. But what was the butterfly book? And where was Mommy's special place? The cemetery seemed the obvious answer, but Jack had already searched around Olivia's grave. Martha had helped him check for anything hidden in the vicinity. Then it hit him. Olivia's special place might not be where she ended up, but where she began. Her childhood home. Olivia Bennett had grown up in a modest colonial house in Fairfax, Virginia, a fact Jack remembered from their early dating days when she'd shown him faded photographs of her childhood. The drive took just over an hour, giving Jack time to process the magnitude of what was happening. Emma was his daughter. Olivia had died protecting some secret. And in 3 weeks their child would disappear into an international program that had frightened Olivia enough to make contingency plans. The Bennett family home had changed little from the photographs Jack remembered. White clapboard siding, blue shutters, a wraparound porch with a swing, classic Americana that now belonged to an elderly woman named Carol Parker, according to county records. Olivia's mother had died while they were deployed, and her father had passed years earlier. With no siblings, Olivia had sold the house after her mother's death. Jack rang the doorbell, bracing himself for the likely scenario of being turned away. And the door opened to reveal a woman in her 70s, silver hair neatly styled, suspicious eyes regarding him through bifocals. Mrs. Parker, my name is Jack Sullivan. I was Olivia Bennett's husband. Recognition flashed across her face. The soldier! You'd better come in. She stepped aside, allowing Jack into a foyer where little had changed since Olivia's childhood. The same wallpaper, the same grandfather clock ticking solemnly in the corner. You're about 8 years too late for introductions, Carol said, leading him to a living room filled with books and family photographs. Olivia talked about you often, even after you left. Tea? Yes, thank you. Jack's eyes scanned the photographs displayed on the mantel, many showing Carol with a much younger Olivia. You knew Olivia well? Since she was born, I was her mother's best friend, her godmother. Carol disappeared into the kitchen, returning moments later with a tea tray. After Diana passed, I became the closest thing to family Olivia had left. When she found out she was pregnant, I was the first person she called. Jack accepted a teacup, the delicate china feeling absurdly small in his calloused hands. She never tried to tell me about the baby. Carol gave him a measured look. She tried for months to find you. Hired a private investigator, reached out to military contacts. You'd vanished very thoroughly. She poured her own tea. Eventually, she accepted that you didn't want to be found. She was already showing by then, and that man from Meadowbrook had started taking a particular interest in her situation. Richard Colton? Carol nodded. Offered her a job, housing, medical care. Said Meadowbrook had a program for single mothers with medical backgrounds. She stirred sugar into her tea. It seemed like the perfect solution. Olivia could work while raising Emma, and the child would have access to excellent education. When did things change? The elderly woman's expression darkened. About 6 months before she died. She started calling me late at night, asking strange questions about whether I'd be willing to take Emma if something happened to her. Then, 3 weeks before the accident, she came here with Emma, left a package, and made me promise not to open it unless she— Carol's voice faltered. Unless she couldn't come back for it. Jack leaned forward. What was in the package? A children's book about butterflies. Inside was a safety deposit box key and instructions to wait 1 year before accessing it. She said if I opened it too soon, they would know and come for it. Carol set down her teacup. After she died, I followed her instructions. The safety deposit box contained documents, financial records from Meadowbrook, photographs, and a letter for Emma when she turned 18. Do you still have these items? Jack asked, struggling to keep his voice level despite the adrenaline surging through him. Carol studied him for a long moment. I moved them. 2 days after I visited that safety deposit box, someone broke into my home. They didn't take anything, but my files had been searched. She rose, crossing to a bookshelf. The butterfly book is still here, though. They didn't recognize its importance. She pulled out a worn children's book titled Mariposa's Journey, The Secret Path of the Butterfly. The cover showed a vibrant blue butterfly flying over a winding path through a forest. This was Emma's favorite. Olivia read it to her every night. Carol handed him the book. Look at the inscription. Jack opened to the first page. Olivia's familiar handwriting flowed across the dedication. To my darling Emma, remember that butterflies always find their way home, no matter how far they travel. When you need help, follow Mariposa's secret path. It will lead you to safety. All my love, Mommy. As Jack turned the pages, he noticed subtle alterations to the printed text. Tiny symbols drawn alongside certain words, page corners folded in specific patterns. In the illustration of the butterfly's home, a small house had been carefully modified to resemble the Bennett family home. She encoded something in here, Jack murmured. Olivia always loved puzzles and codes, even as a child, Carol said. The documents I retrieved are hidden at my sister's lake house in the Shenandoah Valley. I can take you there tomorrow. Jack continued examining the book. On one page, Mariposa, the butterfly, flew over a cemetery remarkably similar to Arlington. Another showed her hiding from shadowy figures near a building that could be Meadowbrook. Did Olivia ever mention what she discovered at Meadowbrook? What made her afraid? Carol's hands trembled slightly as she poured more tea. Not specifically, but she mentioned a program called Monarch. Said children were being processed through it, with falsified records, something about special international adoptions for children with exceptional abilities. Processing, Jack repeated, the military euphemism sending a chill down his spine. Did she have proof? Whatever she had, she divided it among multiple hiding places. She told me, if anything happens to me, Jack will come for Emma. Make sure he finds the butterfly. Carol's eyes misted. I didn't believe her. After all those years of silence, why would you suddenly appear? Jack closed the book carefully. I didn't know about Emma until 5 days ago. I found her at Olivia's grave. Olivia always said that cemetery would bring you two together someday. Carol's voice softened. She never stopped believing you'd return if Emma needed you badly enough. I need to get her away from Meadowbrook, Jack said. They're planning to transfer her overseas in less than 3 weeks. Carol's expression hardened. Then we'd better hurry to get those documents. The next morning, Jack followed Carol's sedan along winding mountain roads to a rustic cabin overlooking a serene lake. The peaceful setting contrasted sharply with the tension coiling inside him. Inside the cabin, Carol removed a loose floorboard beneath a worn rug, pulling out a waterproof document case. "Everything Olivia left is in here. I've never examined it all. Felt like it wasn't my place." Jack opened the case on the rough-hewn dining table. Inside were folders meticulously labeled in Olivia's precise handwriting. Financial records, Monarch program, Emma's medical tests, and personal. The financial documents revealed complex money transfers from Meadowbrook to offshore accounts, disguised as educational program funding. The Monarch program folder contained photographs of children, some Jack recognized from Meadowbrook, alongside assessment scores and destination countries. Each child had been evaluated for intelligence, memory retention, pattern recognition, and psychological resilience. "They're cataloging these kids like products," Jack muttered, the realization turning his stomach. The most disturbing folder was Emma's medical records. Blood tests, brain scans, psychological evaluations, all performed without parental consent, and all highlighting Emma's exceptional cognitive abilities. A note from Richard Colton described her as prime Monarch material with optimal placement potential. In the personal folder, Jack found a letter addressed to him, dated 3 months before Olivia's death. "Jack, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and Emma is in danger. I've tried to protect her, but the more I discover about Meadowbrook, the more I realize we're trapped in something bigger than I imagined. Meadowbrook isn't a children's center, it's a selection facility. They identify children with exceptional abilities and place them with specialized international sponsors. These aren't adoptions, they're acquisitions. The children never return, their records are erased, their previous identities disappear. Richard has been watching Emma since she was born. He offered me the job to keep us close, to evaluate her. I didn't understand until it was too late. I've gathered evidence, but they're watching me now. I've taught Emma how to send messages through her drawings. I've shown her your photograph every night so she'll recognize you when the time comes. The butterfly will lead you to everything you need. Trust Emma. She knows more than they realize. I'm sorry I kept her from you. The doctors were wrong about your injury. By the time I found out I was pregnant, you'd disappeared completely. I tried to find you, Jack. I never stopped trying. Get our daughter out. Keep her safe. I've always loved you, Olivia." Jack's hands shook as he folded the letter. The pieces were falling into place. Olivia's fear, the surveillance, the rushed transfer plans after Emma had contacted him. "This is trafficking," he told Carol, spreading out the financial documents. "They're identifying gifted children, manufacturing guardianship claims, and selling them to overseas sponsors. Colton's signature is on all of these authorizations." Carol's face had gone pale. Who would want to buy children? Think about it. Children with exceptional memory, pattern recognition, analytical skills. In the wrong hands, they could be trained for anything from code breaking to financial analysis. Jack's military mind understood the strategic value all too clearly, and a 5-year-old is the perfect target. Young enough to mold, old enough to have demonstrable abilities. What are you going to do? Jack carefully repacked the documents, keeping only Olivia's letter, and selected evidence about the Monarch program. "First, I need to get legal emergency custody of Emma. These documents prove Colton's guardianship is fraudulent and that Emma is in immediate danger." "Will that be enough? These people seem powerful." "It won't be enough on its own," Jack admitted, "but it's the first step in a larger operation." Back in his truck, Jack called Michael Brooks, outlining what he'd discovered. The lawyer's response was grim. "This is bigger than I thought, Jack. Crossing state lines with these kids makes it federal, and with Senator Blackwood potentially involved." Michael paused. "We need to be strategic. File for emergency custody first thing tomorrow, based on the DNA results and evidence of fraudulent guardianship. I'll have the paperwork ready by morning." "And if that fails?" Jack asked, knowing full well it might. "Then we move to Plan B, but let's hope it doesn't come to that." Jack's next call was to Sarah Reynolds, arranging to meet at Marigold's again. He needed an inside perspective on Meadowbrook's operations and Emma's daily routine. The coffee shop was busier this time. Sarah slid into the booth, her face drawn with fatigue. "They're accelerating the transfer schedule," she said without preamble. "Not just for Emma. 3 other children are being processed this week." "Why the rush?" "I think Richard suspects something. Security has increased." "We're not allowed to be alone with the children anymore." She accepted the coffee Jack pushed toward her. "I heard him on the phone yesterday, telling someone that the Sullivan situation was being handled." Jack's instincts sharpened. "Has Emma's routine changed?" "They've restricted her cemetery visits, claimed she's been acting out and needs more structured supervision." Sarah leaned closer. "There's something else. Senator Blackwood is visiting Meadowbrook tomorrow for a publicity photo with the children. It's being billed as part of his child welfare campaign, but I overheard Richard saying they needed to accelerate the timetable before Sullivan becomes a problem." Jack showed her the documents about the Monarch program. Sarah's hands trembled as she examined them. "I suspected something like this, but seeing it documented..." She pushed the papers back to him. "What do you need from me?" "Information on Emma's exact location within the facility, building layouts, the security protocols, and anything you can tell me about where they might move her if they decide to hide her." Sarah hesitated. "You're planning something beyond legal channels, aren't you?" "I'm planning for all contingencies," Jack replied evenly. "If the court grants emergency custody, great. If not, I need options." "There's a secondary facility," Sarah said after a long pause, "a transition center near Dulles Airport. Children sometimes go there before international placement." She pulled out her phone, bringing up an inconspicuous office building on a mapping application. "Security is lighter than Meadowbrook, but it's also more isolated." Jack memorized the location. "How would Emma react if I suddenly appeared to take her out of Meadowbrook?" "She talks about you constantly. When the staff isn't listening, she calls you her soldier daddy." Sarah smiled faintly. "She'd go with you in a heartbeat." As Jack left Marigold's, he noticed a black SUV parked across the street, the same model that had picked up Emma at the cemetery. The driver was watching the coffee shop entrance. He was being followed. The confrontation was escalating faster than he'd anticipated. Jack drove to Arlington Cemetery, taking a circuitous route to ensure the SUV was indeed trailing him. At the cemetery, he parked near the administration building and entered through the main gate, walking briskly toward Olivia's grave. The SUV remained outside, but a man in a dark suit began following Jack at a distance. Martha was nowhere to be seen, but Jack found her pruning roses several rows away from Olivia's headstone. "You've got a shadow," she observed without looking up from her work. "I noticed. Did Emma come yesterday?" Martha shook her head. "They called to cancel her visit, said she had a cold." The elderly woman didn't believe this excuse any more than Jack did. "But she left something for you last week. Made me promise to give it to you next time you came alone." She reached into her gardening apron and pulled out a folded paper butterfly meticulously crafted from construction paper. Jack carefully unfolded it. Inside, Emma had drawn a map, childlike but recognizable, showing Meadowbrook's main building with an X marking what appeared to be a room on the 2nd floor. Written in a child's handwriting were the words, "My special place is where the butterflies sleep." "That child's too smart for her own good," Martha murmured. "Been worried sick about her since they stopped her visits." "I'm getting her out," Jack said. "One way or another." Martha nodded, as if she'd expected nothing less. "You'll need help. My son-in-law works security at Meadowbrook, night shift at the East Gate. Name's Frank Peterson. Tell him Martha sent you." Jack returned to his truck, the paper butterfly secure in his pocket. His military training had included extraction operations in hostile territory. He'd never imagined he'd need those skills to rescue his own daughter on American soil. As he drove away from Arlington, the black SUV continued its surveillance. Jack made no attempt to lose them. Let them watch. Let them think they had the upper hand. He'd learned long ago that sometimes the best position wasn't hiding from your enemy, but letting them see exactly what you wanted them to see. That night, Jack's apartment door was forced open while he was meeting with Michael Brooks to finalize the emergency custody petition. The intruders took his laptop and ransacked his files, but found nothing of value. Jack had anticipated this move and kept all essential documents with him or hidden elsewhere. "They're getting desperate," Michael observed when Jack called to report the break-in. "That's good and bad. Good because it means they're worried. Bad because desperate people make dangerous moves." The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. the following morning. Judge Eleanor Harmon would review the petition in her chambers, a small victory arranged through one of Michael's connections. Jack barely slept, reviewing contingency plans and studying the layouts of both Meadowbrook and the transition facility near Dulles. By dawn, he had 3 separate strategies prepared: legal, semi-legal, and what Michael had diplomatically termed the nuclear option. The courthouse was quiet when Jack arrived, the early hour limiting the usual bustle of attorneys and clients. Michael met him at the entrance, crisp in a navy suit despite the early hour. "Judge Harmon is fair but strict on procedure," he warned as they climbed the marble steps. "She'll want to see clear evidence of imminent danger to Emma, not just the DNA connection." Jack nodded, adjusting his own tie, the first time he'd worn one since Olivia's funeral. "Let's hope she values children over paperwork." They were directed to a small anteroom outside the judge's chambers. To Jack's surprise, Richard Colton was already seated inside, accompanied by a sharp-featured woman in an expensive suit. "Mr. Sullivan," Colton said smoothly, standing to extend his hand, "I'm disappointed it's come to this. I'd hoped we could reach an amicable arrangement regarding your visitation with Emma." Jack ignored the outstretched hand. "There's nothing amicable about child trafficking, Colton." The woman beside Colton stiffened. "My client will not respond to such inflammatory and defamatory accusations. I'm Margaret Wells, representing Meadowbrook Children's Center and Mr. Colton. We're prepared to offer supervised visitation twice weekly while the court evaluates Mr. Sullivan's paternity claims." "The DNA test already confirmed my paternity," Jack replied coldly. "A private test performed without legal supervision or chain of custody documentation," Wells countered. "Hardly admissible for custody determinations." Before Jack could respond, a clerk opened the chamber door. "Judge Harmon will see you now." Judge Eleanor Harmon was a formidable presence despite her small stature. Silver-haired and sharp-eyed, she regarded the 4 people entering her chambers with clinical detachment. "I've reviewed the emergency petition," she began without preamble. "Mr. Sullivan, you're claiming biological paternity of Emma Bennett, currently under the guardianship of Mr. Colton, and alleging imminent danger requiring immediate custody transfer. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Jack confirmed. "And you have evidence supporting both claims?" Michael handed forward a folder containing the DNA results and selected documents from Olivia's hidden cache. "The DNA confirmation, Your Honor, along with evidence of Mr. Colton's fraudulent guardianship claim and documentation of a program called Monarch that threatens Emma's safety." Judge Harmon accepted the folder, reviewing its contents with an inscrutable expression. Meanwhile, Wells presented her own documentation: Emma's birth certificate with no father listed, Olivia's power of attorney granting guardianship to Colton, and psychological evaluations suggesting Emma had created an imaginary father figure to cope with her mother's death. Mr. Colton has been Emma's legal guardian for 3 years, Wells argued. Mr. Sullivan abandoned the mother during pregnancy and has had 0 contact with the child until 5 days ago. His sudden appearance and extreme claims suggest an emotional instability that could harm Emma's well-being. Jack fought to maintain his composure as Wells systematically portrayed him as an unstable, absent father making wild accusations against a respected child care professional. Judge Harmon turned to Jack. Mr. Sullivan, why did you have no contact with your daughter for 5 years? I was unaware of her existence, Your Honor, Jack replied. After a combat injury, doctors told me I was infertile. I left Olivia believing I couldn't give her the family she wanted. She tried to find me when she discovered she was pregnant, but I had changed my contact information and location. I only learned about Emma when I encountered her at her mother's grave last week. The judge studied him thoughtfully. And these allegations against Meadowbrook, what evidence supports them beyond these documents, which I note contain no official letterhead or verification? This was the weakest point in their case. Olivia's documented evidence was compelling but would be easily dismissed as hearsay or forgeries in court. Your Honor, Michael intervened, we have testimony from Dr. Sarah Reynolds, a current Meadowbrook employee, corroborating these concerns. She's willing to testify that Emma is scheduled for international transfer within 3 weeks, after which she would effectively disappear from U.S. jurisdiction. Wells scoffed. Dr. Reynolds is currently on probation for medication errors and facing potential termination. Her reliability is questionable at best. The back and forth continued for nearly an hour, with Judge Harmon asking pointed questions of both sides. Jack could see the skepticism in her expression, not because she disbelieved him, but because the legal standard for emergency intervention was extraordinarily high. Finally, she closed her folder. This is a complex situation requiring more thorough investigation. I'm ordering a court-supervised DNA test to officially establish paternity. Until those results are available, custody will remain with Mr. Colton as the documented legal guardian. Jack felt his hopes sinking, but the judge wasn't finished. However, I am implementing temporary restrictions. Emma Bennett is not to be removed from the jurisdiction or enrolled in any international program pending resolution of this matter. Mr. Sullivan will be granted supervised visitation 3 times weekly, and I'm appointing a guardian ad litem to independently evaluate Emma's living situation and best interests. It wasn't the victory Jack had hoped for, but it wasn't a complete defeat either. The restriction on international transfer would at least buy them time. As they left the chambers, Colton's mask of professional concern slipped momentarily, revealing cold fury beneath. You're making a serious mistake, Sullivan. Some doors shouldn't be forced open. I'm getting my daughter back, Jack replied quietly. The only question is how messy you want this to become. Outside the courthouse, Michael gripped Jack's shoulder. It's a start. The guardian ad litem gives us another potential ally, and the visitation order means they can't completely isolate Emma from you. Jack watched Colton and Wells drive away in a sleek town car. They'll accelerate their timeline now. The court order won't stop them. It'll just make them more careful. What's your next move? Jack checked his watch. 10 hours until nightfall. I'm going to visit my daughter, and then I'm going to prepare for Plan B. Meadowbrook's reception area gleamed with polished floors and professional photography of smiling children. A receptionist with a practiced smile greeted Jack, her eyes flickering with recognition. Mr. Sullivan for his court-ordered visitation with Emma Bennett, Jack stated, placing Judge Harmon's order on the counter. Of course, if you'll wait here, someone will escort you shortly. Her tone was pleasant, but her fingers moved swiftly across her keyboard, undoubtedly alerting Colton to his arrival. Jack took a seat, noting the security cameras positioned throughout the lobby. On the wall hung photographs of Senator William Blackwood at various Meadowbrook events, his political smile unwavering across a decade of images. In the most recent, he stood with his arm around Richard Colton, both men flanked by children, including Emma. "Mr. Sullivan." Dr. Sarah Reynolds appeared in the doorway, her professional demeanor betrayed only by the slight tremor in her hands. "Please follow me to the visitation room." As they walked through the sterile corridors, Sarah whispered, "They've moved her things." After the hearing, Richard ordered Emma's belongings packed. Jack kept his expression neutral for the cameras. "Where?" "I don't know, but they've canceled all her regular activities for the next week. Claim she needs psychological evaluation after your appearance." The visitation room was different from before, smaller, with fewer toys and no windows. A camera blinked in the corner. Emma sat at a table, coloring intently, a security guard positioned by the door. "Daddy!" She launched herself across the room, wrapping her arms around Jack's legs. The pure trust in that embrace made his throat tighten. "Hey, Butterfly," he said softly, kneeling to her level. "I've missed you." Emma's eyes darted to the guard and camera before she whispered, "Are you taking me home today?" "Not today," Jack answered, heart breaking at her crestfallen expression. "But soon, I promise." The guard cleared his throat. "Physical contact should be minimized, Mr. Sullivan." Jack ignored him, helping Emma back to the table. "What are you drawing?" She pushed her paper toward him, another butterfly, this one with a building inside its wings. Jack recognized the structure from her previous map, a small outbuilding at the edge of Meadowbrook's property. "That's beautiful," he said. "Do butterflies live there?" Emma nodded solemnly. "That's where they sleep before they fly away forever." Her small fingers traced the pattern. "Mr. Colton says I'm going to fly away soon, too." Jack maintained his smile through sheer force of will. "Is that something you want, Emma?" She shook her head, eyes suddenly filled with tears. "I want to stay with you." "Mommy said you'd keep me safe." The guard stepped forward. "Mr. Sullivan, please refrain from upsetting the child." "I'm not upset," Emma protested, wiping her eyes. "I'm happy because my daddy came back just like Mommy promised." Jack squeezed her hand. "I will always come back for you, Emma, no matter what." She seemed to understand the deeper meaning in his words, nodding with surprising seriousness for a 5-year-old. "I know. Soldiers keep their promises." They spent the next 20 minutes coloring together, Jack carefully memorizing every detail of the building in Emma's drawing. When Dr. Reynolds returned to end the visit, Emma clung to him fiercely. "Remember the butterfly story?" she whispered. "Mariposa always finds the secret path home." Jack kissed the top of her head. "I remember. Be brave, Butterfly. It won't be long now." Outside Meadowbrook, Jack sat in his truck studying Emma's drawing. The outbuilding appeared to be a maintenance or storage facility near the eastern perimeter. If Martha's son-in-law worked the east gate, that couldn't be coincidence. He called Michael. "They're planning to move her, soon." "I was afraid of that," the lawyer replied. "I've filed the paperwork for the court-supervised DNA test, but the earliest appointment is 3 days from now." "She won't be there in 3 days." Michael's sigh crackled through the speaker. "You're considering Plan B, aren't you? Not considering implementing." A long pause. "Jack, if you take her without legal clearance, that's kidnapping, even as her biological father. If I don't, she disappears into an international trafficking network and I never see her again." Jack's voice was steady, his decision already made. "I need you to be ready with the evidence packet for the FBI and Justice Department the moment I have her safely away. You're risking prison. I've faced worse odds." Another pause. "When?" "Tonight. They're accelerating their timeline, which means we accelerate ours. Jack's next call was to Carol Parker, arranging for her to meet him at a small motel in West Virginia tomorrow afternoon. If everything went according to plan, he and Emma would need somewhere to stay temporarily, away from known connections. As dusk settled over Meadowbrook, Jack parked half a mile away, approaching on foot through the wooded area that bordered the eastern edge of the property. The security fence was impressive, 10 feet high with motion sensors, but Jack had overcome more formidable barriers in combat zones. At the east gate, a solitary guard booth stood illuminated in the gathering darkness. Jack approached openly, hands visible. "Frank Peterson?" he called to the guard inside. The security guard, a heavy-set man in his 50s, tensed, hand moving toward his hip. "Who's asking?" "Martha Wilson sent me." "I'm Jack Sullivan, Emma Bennett's father." Recognition flickered across Peterson's weathered face. "Martha said you might come. Said you're trying to help that little girl. I need to get to the storage building on the east side. Emma's being moved soon, possibly tonight." Peterson studied him for a long moment. "My wife and I fostered kids for 20 years before I took this job. Seen my share of bad situations." He glanced at the security cameras. "Those record to an off-site server. Can't turn them off without raising alarms." Jack nodded, understanding the limitation. "I just need access to the grounds." Peterson's jaw worked as he considered his options. Finally, he reached beneath his desk and handed Jack a maintenance worker's cap and ID badge. "Cameras have blind spots between the parking area and that storage building. Security patrol passes every 30 minutes. He checked his watch. "Next one's in 12 minutes. "Thank you," Jack said, donning the cap. "I never saw you," Peterson replied gruffly. "And Mr. Sullivan? That little girl deserves better than whatever game they're playing with her. My mother-in-law doesn't trust many people, but she trusts you." Jack moved through the grounds with practiced efficiency, using shadows and timing his movements between security patrols. The storage building stood apart from the main facility, its utilitarian design contrasting with Meadowbrook's polished exterior. The door was locked, but Jack made short work of it with skills honed during special operations training. Inside, the space was divided into storage areas and a small office. Utility shelves lined the walls, holding maintenance supplies and seasonal decorations. Jack searched methodically, looking for anything connected to Emma or the Monarch program. In the back office, he found a filing cabinet labeled simply "Transport." Inside were folders containing travel documentation for several children, including Emma. The papers confirmed his worst fears. Emma was scheduled for transport tomorrow night, not in 3 weeks as Sarah had initially heard. Her destination was listed as a specialized educational facility in Prague, Czech Republic. The paperwork included a diplomatic courier authorization signed by Senator Blackwood's office, bypassing normal immigration protocols. Jack photographed everything with his phone, then continued searching. In a supply closet, he discovered a stack of small suitcases, each bearing a child's name. Emma's was there, packed and ready, containing a few clothes and her butterfly hairpin carefully wrapped in tissue paper. A noise outside froze him in place. Flashlight beams swept across the windows as voices approached, the security patrol, ahead of schedule. Jack slipped into the shadows behind a tall shelf, controlling his breathing as the door opened. "Just checking the transport preparations," came Richard Colton's voice. "The Sullivan situation has forced us to expedite. Senator Blackwood is concerned about potential exposure." "All 4 packages are prepared for tomorrow's transport," replied a second man. "Diplomatic courier service is confirmed for 2,200 hours. The children will be sedated for travel as usual." "And Emma Bennett?" "Special handling as requested. The senator has particular interest in her placement. Her father is becoming problematic. The judge's restrictions were unexpected. Court orders can be circumvented. Once she's out of the country, Sullivan's claims become moot. The check facility is prepared for her arrival." The men moved further into the building, checking the suitcases. Jack remained motionless, years of combat discipline controlling his rage at hearing his daughter discussed like cargo. "What about the evidence Sullivan claims to have?" the second man asked. "Fragmented and circumstantial," Colton replied dismissively. "Nothing that would stand up to serious scrutiny, especially against Senator Blackwood's influence. Any investigation would be shut down before it gained traction." The men finished their inspection and left, locking the door behind them. Jack waited 10 minutes before moving, ensuring they were truly gone. He needed to act immediately. Emma would be taken tomorrow night, less than 24 hours away. He slipped out of the building, retracing his path to the east gate. Peterson pretended not to see him as he passed, maintaining plausible deniability. Once clear of Meadowbrook's perimeter, Jack called Michael. "They're moving her tomorrow night. I have the documentation and transport orders." "Christ," Michael muttered. "That violates the judge's direct order. They're using diplomatic channels through Senator Blackwood's office. They've done this before, with other children. We need to go to the FBI immediately." "And watch them open an investigation that takes weeks while Emma disappears?" Jack countered. "No. I'm getting her out tonight." A heavy silence. "Jack, what you're planning is the only option left. Have the evidence package ready to release the moment I confirm Emma is safe." Jack's next call was to Sarah Reynolds, who answered in a whisper. "I can't talk long. They've increased security patrols. Where's Emma right now?" "East Wing, 3rd floor, room 317. They've isolated her from the other children." Sarah's voice shook. "Jack, there are guards posted. They're watching her constantly." "Is there any time she's left alone? Any gap in their security?" "Morning medications," Sarah replied after a moment's thought. "Between 6:30 and 7 o'clock a.m. The night guard goes off duty, but the day security doesn't start rounds until after breakfast distribution. There's about 15 minutes when only nursing staff is on that floor. Can you get her to the east stairwell during that window?" A sharp intake of breath. "You're coming for her tonight. Tomorrow will be too late. They're moving her tomorrow night." Another pause. "I'll have her there at 6:45. East stairwell, 3rd floor." Sarah's voice dropped even lower. "Jack, if they catch you—" "They won't." Jack drove to a 24-hour department store, purchasing essentials for a child on the run: clothes, snacks, a stuffed butterfly, and a booster seat for his truck. He checked into a roadside motel under a false name, paying cash, and spent the night preparing. By 5:30 a.m., he was in position near Meadowbrook's east entrance, watching staff arrive for the morning shift. At 6:15, he approached the service entrance disguised as a maintenance worker, using the ID Peterson had provided. The early hour and change of shifts provided the confusion he needed to slip inside unnoticed. The east stairwell was deserted as Jack climbed to the 3rd floor, moving with the silent efficiency that had once made him an elite soldier. He checked his watch. 6:40 a.m. 5 minutes until Sarah would bring Emma. At precisely 6:45, the stairwell door opened. Sarah appeared, leading Emma by the hand. The child was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, her backpack clutched to her chest, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. "Daddy," she whispered, as if afraid she was dreaming. Jack knelt, opening his arms. "Time to go home, Butterfly." Emma flew into his embrace, clinging to him fiercely. Jack looked up at Sarah. "Thank you." The doctor nodded, tears in her eyes. "Get her somewhere safe. I'll delay the alarm as long as I can." Jack lifted Emma into his arms. "Ready for an adventure?" She nodded solemnly. "Mommy said you'd come when the butterflies were in danger." "Smart, Mommy," Jack murmured, heading down the stairs. "We need to be very quiet now, okay?" Like secret agents, Emma pantomimed, zipping her lips, her complete trust in him both heartwarming and terrifying. The weight of responsibility settled on Jack's shoulders as he carried his daughter toward an uncertain future. They reached the ground floor without incident. Jack peered through the door's small window, ensuring the corridor was clear before slipping through with Emma still in his arms. The service entrance was just ahead, 20 yards of exposed hallway between them and freedom. They were halfway there when an alarm blared throughout the building. "Security breach, East Wing. All personnel implement lockdown procedures immediately." Jack broke into a run, no longer concerned with stealth. Emma clung to him, her small body tense but silent as he burst through the service door into the early morning light. His truck was parked just beyond the perimeter fence, through the wooded area. Behind them, shouts echoed from the building. Jack sprinted toward the fence line, Emma secure in his arms. They reached the tree line as the first security personnel emerged from the building. "Hold tight, Butterfly," Jack murmured, scaling the fence one-handed, decades of military training making the impossible possible. They dropped to the other side just as flashlight beams swept the perimeter. Jack ran through the woods, Emma's face buried against his shoulder. They reached his truck as the sound of pursuit grew louder. Within seconds, they were inside, Emma secured in her booster seat, the engine roaring to life. "Are the bad people going to catch us?" Emma asked, her voice small but steady. Jack met her eyes in the rearview mirror as he accelerated away from Meadowbrook. "Not a chance, Butterfly. Your dad was the best at hide-and-seek in the whole army." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Mommy said you could find your way home from anywhere in the world." "That's right," Jack confirmed, turning onto the highway heading west. "And now home is wherever you and I are together." As the miles between them and Meadowbrook increased, Jack called Michael. "I have her. We're safe. Release the evidence package now." "Already done," Michael replied. "FBI, Justice Department, and 3 major news outlets. But Jack, they've already reported it as a kidnapping. Your face is going to be everywhere within the hour. Stick to the plan. I'll contact you when we're secure." Jack glanced at Emma in the back seat. She had fallen asleep, the stuffed butterfly clutched to her chest, exhaustion overcoming fear. His daughter, the miracle he never knew existed until a week ago. Whatever came next, manhunts, criminal charges, legal battles, he would face it all to keep her safe. The rising sun painted the highway golden as they drove west, a father and daughter against the world, following Mariposa's secret path home. The small motel room in rural West Virginia had seen better days, its faded floral wallpaper and sagging mattress telling stories of decades past. But to Jack Sullivan it represented temporary sanctuary, the first place he could catch his breath since fleeing Meadowbrook with Emma 12 hours earlier. Emma sat cross-legged on the bed, carefully arranging her few possessions, the stuffed butterfly, her hairpin, and the drawing she'd insisted on bringing in her backpack. Her calm acceptance of their situation unsettled Jack. No 5-year-old should be this composed during a crisis. "Hungry, Butterfly?" he asked, setting out sandwiches he'd purchased at a gas station while wearing a baseball cap low over his face. She nodded, accepting half a peanut butter sandwich. "Are we going to stay here forever?" "Just for tonight," Jack replied, checking his burner phone. No messages yet from Michael or Carol. "We'll move again tomorrow, like Mariposa in the story," Emma said, taking a small bite. "She had to keep moving so the shadow people couldn't catch her." Jack paused, struck by the parallel. "That's right. But Mariposa found her way home eventually, didn't she?" Emma nodded solemnly. She followed the secret path that only butterflies can see. The television in the corner remained off. Jack didn't need to see the reports he knew were circulating. Former Army Ranger kidnaps child from prestigious children's center. Mentally unstable veteran endangers 5-year-old. The narrative Richard Colton would be spinning was predictable. Jack's burner phone finally buzzed with a text message. "Package delivered. Major reaction. Call when safe." Michael had released the evidence as planned. Emma finished her sandwich and yawned, the day's stress catching up with her. Jack helped her change into pajamas purchased during their journey and tucked her into bed. "Will you tell me a story?" she asked, eyes already heavy with impending sleep. Jack hesitated. He didn't know children's stories. But Emma looked up expectantly, and he found himself reaching for memories of his own father. "Once there was a soldier who was very brave," he began tentatively. "He fought in faraway lands to protect people who couldn't protect themselves." Emma snuggled deeper under the covers. "Like you." "Like me," Jack acknowledged. "But one day, the soldier was hurt badly and had to go home alone. He thought he had lost everything that mattered." "Was he sad?" Emma's voice was growing drowsy. "Very sad, for many years, until one day he discovered something magical waiting for him, something he never knew existed." "What was it?" she murmured, fighting sleep. Jack gently stroked her hair. "The most beautiful butterfly in the world. His daughter." Emma smiled as her eyes closed. "That's a good story, Daddy." Jack sat beside her until her breathing deepened into sleep, then moved to the window, carefully parting the curtains to scan the parking lot. No suspicious vehicles, no sign of pursuit yet. But it would come. His burner phone vibrated again. Carol, this time. "Watching news? You're everywhere. Meeting still on for tomorrow?" He texted back a simple yes before destroying the phone's SIM card and battery. Tomorrow, they would meet Carol at a diner 2 hours west, then continue to her sister's lake house, a temporary haven while Michael implemented the legal counteroffensive. Jack pulled out Olivia's letter, rereading her warnings about Meadowbrook and her instructions about the butterfly book. The code Emma had been taught, the preparations Olivia had made, all of it suggested she'd known exactly how dangerous her discoveries were. "I'm sorry, Liv," he whispered to the empty room. "I should have been there. For both of you." Morning came too soon, gray light filtering through thin curtains. Jack had slept fitfully, years of combat vigilance keeping him alert to every sound outside their room. Emma, by contrast, slept deeply, her small face peaceful in repose. Jack showered quickly, then gently woke his daughter. "Time to go, Butterfly." She rubbed her eyes. "Are the bad people looking for us?" "Probably," Jack answered honestly. "But we're smarter than they are." Emma nodded with surprising confidence. "Mommy said you were the best at hide and seek." They checked out before 7 a.m., Jack keeping his face averted from the sleepy clerk. The morning news played on a small television behind the counter, but the volume was too low to catch more than fragments. Former military, child custody dispute, authorities urge. Jack settled Emma in the truck with breakfast, a banana and granola bar from the vending machine, and they resumed their journey westward. He'd switched license plates during the night with a similar truck in the motel parking lot, buying them some additional time. The diner where they were meeting Carol sat just off the highway, its neon "open" sign flickering in the morning light. Jack parked at the far end of the lot, scanning for anything suspicious before helping Emma out of the truck. "Remember, Butterfly? If anyone asks, you call me Uncle Jack, okay?" Emma nodded, taking his hand as they walked toward the entrance. "Because we're playing hide and seek." "That's right." Carol was already inside, seated in a back booth with clear views of both the entrance and the kitchen door. Her silver hair was tucked under a scarf, sunglasses hiding her eyes despite the indoor setting. "There you are," she said warmly as they approached, her gaze fixed on Emma. "My goodness, you look just like your mother." Emma studied the elderly woman carefully before recognition dawned. "You're in Mommy's pictures." "With the cookies?" Carol smiled. "That's right, sweetheart. I used to make chocolate chip cookies with your mommy when she was little. Jack slid into the booth, positioning himself to watch the entrance. Any problems getting here? Carol shook her head. Roads were clear. But Jack, it's all over the news. They're calling it a kidnapping, saying you're mentally unstable, potentially violent. I expected as much. Jack ordered coffee and pancakes for Emma when the waitress approached. What about the evidence Michael released? That's where it gets interesting. Carol lowered her voice. Some outlets are running with it, calling for investigations into Meadowbrook and Senator Blackwood. Others are dismissing it as fabricated documents from a desperate man trying to justify abduction. Emma, coloring on the children's menu with provided crayons, seemed oblivious to the conversation. But Jack noticed how her crayons slowed whenever Meadowbrook was mentioned. What about federal response? He asked. Mixed. FBI has acknowledged receiving the information. Senator Blackwood held a press conference denouncing the outrageous allegations and expressing concern for Emma's safety. Carol's expression hardened. Richard Colton was beside him, playing the devastated guardian role perfectly. Jack's jaw tightened. The script was unfolding exactly as he'd anticipated. Without Emma's testimony and the original documents Olivia had hidden, it would be his word against Blackwood's, a powerful senator versus a former soldier with PTSD on his record. Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. Jack watched as Emma methodically cut her pancakes into precise triangles before eating each piece in turn, a level of order unusual in a child her age. "Did Olivia teach you to cut your pancakes like that?" he asked gently. Emma shook her head. "Mr. Colton did. He said proper children eat properly." Her voice had taken on a flat quality that sent a chill down Jack's spine. Carol noticed it too, her expression softening. "You don't have to be proper here, sweetheart. You can eat your pancakes any way you like." Emma considered this revolutionary concept, then tentatively picked up a whole pancake with her fingers and took a bite. When no reprimand came, a small smile blossomed on her face. "That's how Mommy and I ate pancakes at home," she confided, "before we went to Meadowbrook." Jack exchanged a glance with Carol. The subtle conditioning Emma had undergone was becoming clearer. Preparation for her placement overseas, perhaps. Carol reached into her purse and extracted a thumb drive. "I brought everything from the lake house, all of Olivia's evidence, digitized. Michael said to give this to you for safekeeping." Jack pocketed the drive. "We should get moving. How far to your sister's place?" "About 3 hours." "It's isolated, no neighbors for miles. You'll be safe there while things develop." As they prepared to leave, Jack noticed a state police cruiser pulling into the parking lot. Routine stop for breakfast or something more targeted. "Carol, take Emma to the restroom," he said quietly. "If I'm not back at the table in 5 minutes, take her out the back door and drive to the lake house without me." Carol nodded, understanding immediately. "Come on, Emma. Let's wash that syrup off your hands." Jack watched them disappear toward the restrooms, then turned his attention to the front door as 2 state troopers entered. They spoke briefly with the hostess, who pointed toward the back of the restaurant, directly at Jack's now empty booth. Fight or flight. The calculation happened in milliseconds. Fighting would endanger everyone in the diner, including Emma. Flight was the only option. Jack left cash on the table and moved casually toward the kitchen, nodding at a waitress as if he belonged there. The kitchen staff barely glanced at him as he walked purposefully through their domain and out the back service entrance. From this vantage point, he could see Carol's car parked on the side of the building. The 2 state troopers were now at his empty table, looking confused. They hadn't spotted Carol and Emma yet. Jack circled around to Carol's car, staying low between vehicles. Carol emerged from the back door moments later, Emma clutching her hand. "Get in," Jack said, opening the back door. "I'll drive." Carol handed him the keys without question. "Your truck?" Leave it. They're already looking for it. As Jack pulled Carol's sedan onto the highway, Emma spoke from the back seat. The police were looking for us, weren't they? Yes, Jack answered honestly. Because Mr. Colton told them you took me. That's right. Emma was silent for a moment, processing this. But you're my real daddy. Mommy's pictures proved it. Sometimes grown-ups don't always tell the truth, Carol explained gently. Mr. Colton wants people to believe your daddy took you without permission. But that's a lie, Emma said with surprising fierceness. Mommy said my daddy would come save me when it was time. She promised. Jack met her eyes in the rearview mirror. And I'm keeping that promise, Butterfly. No matter what. They drove in tense silence for the next hour, taking back roads to avoid main highways. Jack's military training included evasion techniques, but he'd never imagined using them on American soil with his own daughter. The radio brought hourly updates on the search. An Amber Alert had been issued for Emma Bennett, reportedly abducted by Jack Sullivan, described as armed and dangerous. The report mentioned his military background and suggested PTSD might be influencing his actions. "They're making you sound like a monster," Carol said indignantly. "It's effective strategy," Jack replied, his voice detached as he analyzed the situation. "Discredit the whistleblower to discredit the evidence. Standard procedure." The burner phone Michael had given Carol rang. She answered cautiously, then handed it to Jack. "It's Sarah Reynolds." "Sarah, are you secure?" Jack asked immediately. "No," she replied, voice shaking. "They're watching me. I don't have much time. They know I helped you." Richard found the security footage. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What's happening there?" "FBI agents arrived this morning to examine records. Richard's stonewalling, claiming patient confidentiality. Senator Blackwood is pushing back hard against the allegations." Her voice dropped even lower. "Jack, they're saying you assaulted a guard during the escape. They've upgraded the charges to kidnapping and aggravated assault." "That's a lie," Jack said flatly. "No one was harmed." "I know, but they're building a narrative." Sarah's voice became urgent. "There's something else. I overheard Richard on the phone with the senator. They mentioned contingency measures and cleanup protocol. I think they're destroying evidence. Sarah, you need to get out of there, now." "I can't. They've restricted staff movements, claiming it's for the investigation." A pause. "I've downloaded what files I could access. Sending them to Michael now." "Be careful. If they suspect—" "I know the risks," she interrupted. "Emma's worth it. She's special, Jack. Not just intelligent. She sees patterns, connections others miss. It's why they want her so badly." The call ended abruptly. Jack handed the phone back to Carol, his expression grim. "They're closing ranks," he said. "Destroying evidence, controlling the narrative." Carol nodded. "Olivia warned this might happen. Said Blackwood had resources beyond imagining when it came to protecting his interests." The lake house appeared after another hour of driving. A rustic cabin nestled among pine trees, its weathered dock extending into clear blue water. Isolated and peaceful, it seemed worlds away from the manhunt unfolding across the country. As they unloaded the car, Emma suddenly froze, staring at the lake with wide eyes. "Mommy brought me here," she whispered, "before the bad time. We went swimming." Carol nodded. "That's right, sweetheart. Olivia brought you here when you were just 3. It was your last vacation together." Emma walked slowly toward the dock, her small face a mask of concentration. "She put something under the boards. Said it was our special treasure." Jack and Carol exchanged startled glances before following Emma. The child moved with certainty, counting the boards on the dock before stopping at the 7th one from the end. "Here," she said, pointing. "Mommy's treasure is here." Jack knelt, examining the weathered wood. One board was slightly looser than the others. He worked it free, revealing a small waterproof container wedged between the support beams. Inside was a sealed plastic bag containing a USB drive, a handwritten letter, and a small velvet pouch. The letter was addressed simply, "For Jack, when you find Emma." Jack's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. "Jack, if you're reading this, you found our daughter and brought her to safety. I always knew you would, even when everyone told me to give up hoping." What I discovered at Meadowbrook goes beyond Richard Colton. Senator Blackwood has been running an international program identifying children with exceptional cognitive abilities. These children aren't being adopted. They're being placed in specialized training facilities overseas, groomed for their particular talents. The money trail leads to defense contractors and foreign intelligence agencies. Emma was identified when she was just 2. Her spatial memory and pattern recognition abilities tested off the charts. That's when Richard began showing special interest in us. I've gathered evidence, recorded conversations, copied files. Everything is on this drive, including backup copies of all the documents I've hidden elsewhere. There's also something for Emma in the pouch, something that belonged to both of us. I don't know if I'll still be here when you find this. If I'm not, please tell Emma I love her more than anything in this world. And Jack, despite everything, I never stopped loving you either. Be the father she deserves. Be the hero I always knew you were. All my love, Olivia." Jack closed his eyes briefly, Olivia's words striking him like physical blows. When he opened them, Emma was watching him intently. "Mommy left us a message, didn't she?" she asked. "Yes, Butterfly. She left us the truth." Jack opened the velvet pouch. Inside was Olivia's butterfly pin, the match to Emma's, with the star embedded in its wing. He handed it to Emma, who cradled it reverently. "Now, we both have one," she said softly. "Mommy said when we put them together, we'd always find our way home." As the sun began to set over the lake, casting long shadows across the dock, Jack felt the weight of responsibility settling more firmly on his shoulders. The evidence they now possessed could expose a powerful senator and an international network trafficking in gifted children. But first, they had to survive the hunt. Inside the cabin, Carol prepared a simple dinner while Jack examined the contents of the USB drive on her laptop. What he found was damning. Recorded conversations between Colton and Blackwood discussing procurement and placement of children, financial transactions through shell companies, psychological assessments of dozens of children funneled through Meadowbrook over the years. Most disturbing were the follow-up reports on children already placed overseas. Clinical evaluations of their progress in specialized training, with no mention of normal childhood development or education. These weren't adoptions. They were acquisitions of human assets. The final folder contained video files. Jack clicked on one labeled Emma Assessment. The footage showed his daughter at age 3 solving complex spatial puzzles while Colton observed from behind a two-way mirror, taking notes. "Extraordinary pattern recognition," Colton's voice commented off-camera. "Potential applications in cryptography, signals intelligence. Recommend accelerated development track." Jack closed the laptop, rage building in his chest. They had been evaluating his daughter like a weapon system, determining her value to whoever was buying these children's talents. The burner phone rang again. Michael this time. "FBI is taking the evidence seriously," the lawyer reported. "They've opened a preliminary investigation into Meadowbrook and the Monarch program. But Blackwood is pushing back hard, calling it a political witch hunt." "What about the kidnapping charges?" "Still active. Every law enforcement agency in the country has your description." "But Jack, there's something else. Sarah Reynolds was found unconscious in her car an hour ago. Apparent suicide attempt with prescription medication. Jack's blood ran cold. That's not possible. I just spoke with her. Exactly. This has all the hallmarks of a setup. They're eliminating witnesses. Michael paused. You need to surface, Jack. Bring Emma in yourself on your terms with media present. It's the only way to ensure your safety and get the evidence into the right hands. And risk losing her to Colton again? No. If you stay hidden, they'll paint you as guilty. If Sarah dies, and that seems to be their intention, they'll pin it on you somehow. The narrative becomes unstable veteran on killing spree with kidnapped child. Jack knew Michael was right. The longer they ran, the stronger Blackwood's position became. But surrendering Emma felt impossible. I need 24 hours, he finally said. There's one more piece of evidence I need to secure. After ending the call, Jack explained the situation to Carol. She listened gravely, then said, There's a reporter I trust, Rebecca Holden at the Washington Post. She broke the story on that orphanage scandal in Baltimore last year. If anyone will give you a fair hearing, it's her. Jack nodded. Set it up, but not yet. First, I need to understand exactly what Olivia discovered and why it got her killed. That night, as Emma slept in the cabin's small bedroom, Jack reviewed every file Olivia had gathered. The picture that emerged was more complex and disturbing than he'd initially realized. Senator Blackwood's Monarch program wasn't just identifying gifted children. It was creating a pipeline of young talents for various international clients. Some children went to research institutions, others to specialized training facilities with connections to foreign intelligence services. The program operated under the guise of international educational opportunities for exceptional children, but the reality was a sophisticated trafficking operation hiding in plain sight. Jack was so absorbed in the files that he almost missed the soft sound behind him. He turned to find Emma standing in the doorway, clutching her stuffed butterfly. I had a bad dream, she said simply. Jack closed the laptop and opened his arms. Come here, butterfly. She climbed onto his lap, small and vulnerable in her borrowed pajamas. I dreamed the bad people found us. That was just a dream, Jack assured her, though the possibility haunted him too. We're safe here. Emma leaned against his chest, silent for a moment before asking, Are we going to run away forever? The question pierced Jack's heart. This wasn't the life any child deserved, constantly looking over their shoulder, never feeling secure. No, butterfly. Soon we'll stop running and fight back instead. Like in the stories? The good guys win in the end? Jack wished he could promise her that simple narrative. But real life rarely offered such clean resolutions, especially when facing opponents with the resources of a U.S. senator. We're going to try, he said honestly, and we have something very powerful on our side. What's that? The truth. And your mommy made sure we have proof of that truth. Emma nodded solemnly, accepting this answer with the peculiar gravity she sometimes displayed. Mommy said truth is like a butterfly. It might hide sometimes, but it always finds the light eventually. As Emma drifted back to sleep in his arms, Jack made his decision. They couldn't run forever. Tomorrow they would make their stand, not by surrendering, but by bringing the fight directly to Senator Blackwood and Richard Colton. The trap was about to become the snare. Dawn broke over the lake in ribbons of gold and pink, the water's surface a mirror reflecting the awakening sky. Jack Sullivan stood on the cabin's porch, coffee cooling in his hand as he contemplated the day ahead. He had spent the night formulating a plan that felt more like a military operation than a legal strategy, one final mission with the highest stakes he'd ever faced. Inside, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that today would determine the course of her future. Carol moved quietly around the small kitchen, preparing breakfast with the efficiency of a woman who had navigated life's hardships with quiet dignity. You've made your decision, she said, Not a question, but a recognition, as Jack re-entered the cabin. "Yes," he replied, setting down his untouched coffee. "We can't keep running. Every day we stay hidden strengthens their narrative and weakens ours." Carol nodded, stirring pancake batter with slow, deliberate movements. "Rebecca Holden agreed to meet you. She's driving up from Washington this afternoon." "Good. But first, there's something I need to do." Jack ran a hand through his short hair, the gesture reminiscent of his military days before difficult operations. "I need to get Emma's testimony recorded before we go public. Her words, her experiences, documented without interference or coaching." "Why?" "Because once we surface, they'll claim anything she says was influenced by me. They'll bring in psychologists to testify that she's confused, impressionable, traumatized. We need her unfiltered truth, recorded now." Carol considered this. "Emma trusts you. She'll speak freely." "That's what I'm counting on." When Emma awoke an hour later, she emerged from the bedroom with tousled hair and sleep-creased cheeks, looking momentarily like any normal 5-year-old instead of a child who had endured extraordinary circumstances. The transformation when she saw Jack was subtle, a straightening of small shoulders, a watchfulness entering her eyes that spoke of hard-earned caution. "Good morning, Butterfly," Jack said, kneeling to her level. "Did you sleep better?" She nodded, rubbing her eyes. "No more bad dreams." After breakfast, Jack sat with Emma on the cabin's porch swing, the lake stretching before them like an invitation to a simpler life. He had set up Carol's tablet to record their conversation, explaining to Emma that they needed to capture her memories about Meadowbrook. "This is very important, Butterfly," he said gently. "I need you to tell me everything you remember about Mr. Colton and Meadowbrook, the good things and the bad things." Emma regarded him solemnly, her mother's intelligence shining in her eyes. "Is this for the police? So they know you didn't kidnap me?" Jack nodded, once again struck by her perception. "That's right. And to help other children at Meadowbrook." Emma straightened, her small face setting with determination that reminded him painfully of Olivia. "I'll tell everything. Mommy said always tell the truth, even when it's scary." For the next hour, Emma spoke with remarkable clarity about her life at Meadowbrook. She described the special tests Colton administered, pattern recognition games, memory challenges, spatial reasoning puzzles that became increasingly demanding as she grew older. "Mr. Colton said I was special," she explained, "that I could see things other people couldn't see. He made me play the games every day, even when I was tired." She detailed the isolation from other children, the restricted movements, the constant surveillance. Most disturbingly, she described overhearing conversations between Colton and visitors about her placement potential. "They talked about me like I wasn't a person," she said, a frown creasing her forehead. "Like I was a thing they were selling. Mr. Colton told a man in a fancy suit that I was the most valuable acquisition in the program's history." "Do you remember who the man was?" Jack asked carefully. Emma nodded. "Senator Blackwood. His picture is everywhere at Meadowbrook. He came to visit me specially 5 times. Her voice dropped. "He scared me. He would watch me do puzzles and then talk about operational applications with Mr. Colton." Jack kept his expression neutral despite the rage building inside him. "What about your mom? What did she tell you about Meadowbrook?" Emma's eyes grew distant. "At first, Mommy thought it was a good place. She was happy we could stay together. But then she started getting scared. She would check my room at night, look under the bed, check the closets." Emma twisted the hem of her shirt. "She told me if anything happened to her, I should wait for you at her special place." "The cemetery?" Jack supplied. "Yes." "She showed me a picture of you and said, 'This is your daddy. He's a soldier who protects people. If I can't be with you anymore, he'll come find you.'" Emma's voice trembled slightly. Then she started teaching me about the butterflies, how to hide messages in drawings, how to remember important things without saying them out loud. Did she tell you why she was scared? Emma nodded solemnly. She found something bad in Mr. Colton's special room, papers about children being sent away forever. She said she had to tell someone, but no one would believe her because Senator Blackwood was too important. What happened after that? Mommy got sick. Emma's face clouded. But I don't think she was really sick. She was fine in the morning. Then after lunch with Mr. Colton, she couldn't drive straight. Her car crashed. The child's voice became clinically detached, as if reciting facts rather than describing her mother's death. They told me she died right away, that she didn't hurt. But I heard the nurses talking. They said it was strange that she had so many bruises before the crash. Jack swallowed hard. After your mom died, what changed at Meadowbrook? Everything. Emma's expression hardened in a way no 5-year-olds should. Mr. Colton moved me to the special wing where the Monarch children stayed. No more school with other kids, just tests and more tests. They started talking about my placement and how lucky I was to be selected for the international program. Were there other children in this program? Yes. Some left and never came back. Mr. Colton said they went to special schools overseas, but one of the nurses told me those places weren't really schools. Emma met Jack's eyes directly. They were going to send me away too, to Prague. I heard them talking about my transport schedule. The interview continued, Emma revealing details about Meadowbrook's operations that matched exactly with Olivia's documented evidence. By the time they finished, Jack had over an hour of testimony that would be devastating in the hands of proper authorities, or the press. As Carol took Emma inside for lunch, Jack called Michael. "We're making our move today," he said without preamble. "Washington Post reporter coming this afternoon. I need you to coordinate with the FBI, someone you trust absolutely." Michael was silent for a moment. "Agent Catherine Davis, Counterintelligence Division. We served together in Iraq before she joined the Bureau. If anyone will handle this properly, it's her." "Good. Tell her we have evidence of an international child trafficking operation run through Meadowbrook with Senator Blackwood's direct involvement. Tell her we have financial records, video evidence, and the testimony of Emma Bennett. And Sarah Reynolds? Tell her to check hospital security footage from around the time of Sarah's suicide attempt. I guarantee someone put those pills in her system against her will." After ending the call, Jack reviewed the video of Emma's testimony. Her clear, detailed account would be difficult for even Blackwood's considerable influence to dismiss, especially when paired with Olivia's documented evidence. Carol's laptop chimed with an incoming email. Rebecca Holden confirming her arrival at 3 p.m. 4 hours to prepare. Jack spent those hours organizing the evidence into a coherent narrative, creating copies of everything on separate drives. One for Rebecca Holden, one for Agent Davis, one to remain with Carol as insurance. The original would stay with Jack and Emma. At 2:45 p.m., Jack gathered Emma on his lap. "Someone important is coming to talk to us, Butterfly." "A reporter who's going to help tell our story to everyone?" Emma considered this information. "Will she believe us? Mommy said people don't always believe the truth when it's scary." "This reporter is special. She looks for scary truths that need to be told. Like Mommy did." Jack nodded. "Exactly like Mommy did." Rebecca Holden arrived precisely at 3 p.m., parking her modest sedan beside Carol's car. She was younger than Jack had expected, early 30s perhaps, with keen eyes that missed nothing as she approached the cabin. She carried only a laptop bag and a small recorder. No camera crew, no entourage. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, extending her hand, "thank you for trusting me with this story. Jack evaluated her with the practiced assessment of a soldier who had learned to read people's intentions in war zones. What he saw satisfied him. "Thank you for coming alone. You mentioned evidence regarding Meadowbrook and Senator Blackwood. That's not something I take lightly." Her gaze moved to Emma, who stood partially hidden behind Jack's leg. "And you must be Emma." "I'm Rebecca." Emma studied the reporter carefully before offering a small nod of acknowledgement. Inside, Jack laid out the evidence methodically: financial records, transport documentation, video files, and finally, Emma's recorded testimony. Rebecca watched and listened without interruption, taking minimal notes, her expression growing increasingly grave. "This is," she finally said, "beyond anything I expected. You understand what you're alleging? A United States senator involved in an international trafficking network for gifted children?" "I understand exactly what I'm alleging," Jack replied, "and I have the evidence to support it." Rebecca turned to Emma, who had been quietly drawing butterflies at the kitchen table. "Emma, would you mind if I asked you a few questions too?" The child looked to Jack for reassurance before nodding. "Can you tell me about the special test Mr. Colton gave you?" Emma described the assessments again, her account matching perfectly with her earlier recorded testimony. No coaching, no rehearsed answers, just the clear recollection of a child with exceptional memory. When Emma finished, Rebecca sat back, visibly affected. "I've covered stories about institutional abuse before, but nothing like this." She gathered her recorder. "I need to get this to my editors immediately. This story needs to break tomorrow, with the FBI involved from the start." "What about the manhunt for us?" Jack asked. "Once this evidence is public, the narrative changes completely. You're no longer a kidnapper. You're a whistleblower exposing corruption at the highest levels." Rebecca's expression turned serious. "But there will be significant blowback. Senator Blackwood chairs 3 powerful committees. He has allies throughout Washington. I'm not concerned about politics. I'm concerned about keeping my daughter safe." Rebecca nodded. "I understand. Here's what I propose. I break the story at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Simultaneously, you surrender to Agent Davis, not local authorities, not state police, but directly to the FBI with me present as a witness. This ensures your safety and proper handling of the evidence." It was a solid plan, similar to what Jack had envisioned. Where and when? FBI field office in Pittsburgh. It's equidistant from here in Washington. I'll have my team prepare a secure entrance to avoid any potential interference. As Rebecca prepared to leave with copies of the evidence, Emma approached her with a folded paper butterfly. "This is for you," the child said solemnly. "So you remember to tell the truth even when it's scary." Rebecca accepted the origami creation with equal seriousness. "I promise, Emma. Your story will be told exactly as it happened." After the reporter departed, Jack felt a weight simultaneously lift and settle, the relief of action finally taken, coupled with the responsibility of what came next. Carol prepared dinner while Jack made final arrangements with Michael. The lawyer would meet them at the FBI field office, along with Agent Davis. Everything was in motion. As twilight settled over the lake, Jack sat with Emma on the dock, their feet dangling above the water. The peaceful scene belied the storm they were about to enter. "Tomorrow's going to be a big day," Jack said gently. "We're going to tell everyone the truth about Meadowbrook and Mr. Colton." Emma leaned against his arm. "Will they try to take me away from you again?" "Some people might try," Jack answered honestly. "But this time we have the truth on our side. And a lot of people helping us. Like in Mariposa's story. When all the other butterflies came to help her fight the shadow people? Exactly like that." Jack wrapped his arm around her small shoulders. I promised I'd keep you safe, Butterfly. That's a promise I intend to keep." They sat in companionable silence, watching the sun sink below the tree line. Tomorrow would bring chaos, media attention, legal battles, the full force of Senator Blackwood's influence arrayed against them. But for this moment, there was just a father and daughter together at last. The peace was shattered by the distant sound of helicopter rotors. Jack was on his feet instantly, military instincts kicking into high alert. "Carol," he called, ushering Emma toward the cabin. "We've got company." The elderly woman appeared on the porch, face pale. Police boats coming up the lake, too. At least 3. Jack's mind raced through options, assessing and discarding possibilities with combat-honed speed. Someone had found them, likely tracking Rebecca Holden's vehicle despite her precautions. The evidence was already with the reporter, but Emma's safety was now the priority. "Get your car keys," he told Carol. "There's a fire access road through the woods behind the property. If we move now, we can reach it before they establish a perimeter." Carol disappeared inside, returning moments later with keys and a small backpack. Emergency supplies, food, water, first aid. Jack knelt before Emma, whose eyes were wide but remarkably steady. "Remember how we talked about being brave, Butterfly? I need you to be very brave right now." She nodded, clutching her stuffed butterfly. "Are the bad people here?" "Yes, but we're going to outsmart them." Jack lifted her into his arms. "We're going to play the quietest game of hide-and-seek ever." They slipped out the back door as the helicopter's spotlight swept across the front of the property. Jack led them into the dense woods, moving with the stealth that had once made him an elite soldier. Carol followed, her determination overcoming her age as they pushed deeper into the forest. The access road was nearly a mile through difficult terrain. Jack carried Emma part of the way, but the uneven ground eventually forced him to set her down. "We need to move quickly and quietly," he whispered. "Can you do that, Butterfly?" Emma nodded, her face set with determination beyond her years. They continued through the darkening woods, the sounds of the pursuit growing more distant. Jack oriented himself using the stars appearing overhead, keeping them on course toward the access road. They had nearly reached it when a spotlight cut through the trees ahead. Voices carried on the evening air, search teams deployed along the road, cutting off their escape route. "They've established a perimeter," Jack murmured, pulling them behind a large oak tree. "We need another way out." Carol pointed west. "There's a ranger station about 2 miles that way. It's usually unmanned this time of year, but there's a radio and possibly a vehicle." Jack made his decision quickly. "That's our best option." As they changed direction, Emma suddenly clutched Jack's hand. "Daddy, I'm scared," she whispered, her brave facade finally cracking. Jack knelt beside her. "It's okay to be scared, Butterfly. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you keep going anyway." "Like Mommy did?" "Exactly like Mommy did." Jack squeezed her small hand. "And we're going to keep her promise. We're going to make sure the truth gets told." They continued westward, the forest growing darker as night fully descended. Jack moved with precision, guiding Carol and Emma around obstacles, listening for pursuit, keeping them on course through sheer determination and training. The ranger station appeared as a dark silhouette against the night sky, a small cabin perched on a ridge overlooking the lake. Jack approached cautiously, scanning for signs of searchers. The building appeared unoccupied, its windows dark. "Wait here," he instructed Carol and Emma, finding them cover behind a fallen tree. "I'll check if it's clear." Jack crept toward the station, senses heightened for any sign of danger. The door was locked, but a ranger's pickup truck sat beside the building. if he could get to the keys inside. As he reached the cabin's porch, floodlights suddenly illuminated the clearing. The helicopter appeared overhead, its spotlight pinning Jack in place as armed figures emerged from the surrounding forest. "Jack Sullivan," a voice boomed through a megaphone. "You are surrounded. Release the child and surrender immediately." Jack raised his hands slowly, mind racing. If they had found the ranger station, they knew about the access road too. There was nowhere left to run. "FBI!" A female voice cut through the chaos. "This is Agent Catherine Davis. Sullivan is in federal custody as of this moment." Through the blinding lights, Jack made out a woman in an FBI windbreaker approaching, flanked by agents holding back what appeared to be local police. "Mr. Sullivan," she said as she reached him, voice low enough that only he could hear. "Michael Brooks sent me." "Where is Emma?" "Hidden in the trees with Carol Parker," Jack replied, hope flaring for the first time. "Agent Davis, the evidence is already being processed. Rebecca Holden contacted us directly after leaving you." Davis gestured to her team. "We need to get you and Emma secured before this situation escalates further." As the FBI agents moved to retrieve Carol and Emma, a black SUV pulled into the clearing. Richard Colton emerged, accompanied by two men in suits. "Agent Davis," Colton called, approaching with confident strides. "I appreciate the Bureau's assistance in recovering Emma Bennett. As her legal guardian, I'll be taking custody immediately." Davis turned to face him, her stance shifting subtly to block his path. "That won't be possible, Mr. Colton. Emma Bennett is now under federal protection as a material witness." Colton's smile faltered. "There must be some misunderstanding. I have court-ordered guardianship, which is currently under investigation for potential fraud," Davis interrupted smoothly. "As are you, for multiple federal violations including document falsification and illegal transportation of minors across international borders." The color drained from Colton's face. "This is absurd. Senator Blackwood has his own concerns at the moment," Davis replied. "FBI agents are currently executing search warrants at his offices and Meadowbrook's administrative headquarters." As Colton sputtered protests, Emma emerged from the trees, clutching Carol's hand. The moment she saw Colton, she shrank back, terror written across her small face. "It's okay, Butterfly," Jack called to her. "Agent Davis is here to help us." Emma looked from Jack to the FBI agent, then to Colton. Her fear visibly battled with courage before she straightened her shoulders and walked forward. "Mr. Colton hurt my mommy," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the clearing. "And he was going to send me away forever. My daddy saved me." In that moment, with federal agents as witnesses, the narrative Blackwood and Colton had constructed began to unravel. Emma's simple declaration, spoken with the unvarnished clarity of a child who had endured too much, held more power than all their carefully crafted press statements. As Davis led them toward an FBI vehicle, Colton made one last desperate attempt. "She's been coached. Sullivan has been filling her head with lies. We have psychological evaluations proving Emma is highly suggestible." Emma turned back, her expression suddenly older than her years. "I remember everything, Mr. Colton. Every test, every child who disappeared, every time you talked about selling me." The silence that followed was deafening. In the FBI vehicle, Emma finally allowed herself to relax against Jack's side. "Did we win, Daddy?" she asked, exhaustion creeping into her voice. Jack stroked her hair gently. "Not yet, Butterfly. But we've made it through the hardest part. Now the truth gets to have its say." As they drove away from the lake, lights flashing but sirens silent, Jack watched the stars overhead through the window. Somewhere among them, he liked to think Olivia was watching too, her final mission accomplished, her daughter safe at last. The battle wasn't over. Senator Blackwood's influence ran deep, and powerful forces would fight to contain the scandal. But for the first time since finding Emma at Olivia's grave, Jack felt the tide turning. The truth, like Mariposa the butterfly, had finally found its way into the light. 6 months could change everything, or nothing at all. For Jack Sullivan, standing on the front porch of the small farmhouse he now called home, the past 6 months had transformed his world entirely. The property sat on 10 acres of rolling Virginia countryside, far enough from neighbors to provide privacy, but close enough to civilization for Emma to attend the local elementary school. The 1920s farmhouse had needed work, peeling paint, creaky floorboards, a temperamental furnace, but Jack found unexpected peace in the physical labor of restoration. Fixing broken things had always been his strength. Emma emerged from the house in her school uniform, backpack slung over one shoulder, butterfly hairpin securing her braid, a style Jack had mastered after countless YouTube tutorials and patient practice. "Ready for the big day, Butterfly?" he asked, kneeling to straighten her collar. She nodded solemnly, though excitement danced in her eyes. "First day of first grade. Do you think the other kids will like me?" "They'll love you," Jack assured her, though the question carried weight beyond typical first-day jitters. This would be Emma's first experience in a normal school environment, her first chance at an ordinary childhood after everything she'd endured. The journey to this moment had been anything but smooth. The initial days after their surrender to Agent Davis had been a whirlwind of debriefings, safe houses, and legal maneuvering. Rebecca Holden's explosive front-page expose in the Washington Post had detonated like a precision strike, its shockwaves rippling through Washington's power centers. Senator's secret program trafficked gifted children internationally. The headline alone had been enough to temporarily neutralize Senator Blackwood's influence, creating the breathing room necessary for the FBI investigation to proceed without political interference. The evidence Jack and Olivia had gathered proved devastating. Financial records, transport documentation, and most damning of all, video recordings of Blackwood himself discussing acquisition targets and placement value of specific children. Richard Colton had crumbled quickly under federal questioning, eager to trade information for leniency. His testimony implicated Blackwood in every aspect of the Monarch program, from identifying potential candidates to negotiating their placement with foreign interests. Senator Blackwood had fought back with the considerable resources at his disposal, claiming the evidence was fabricated, that he was the victim of a political smear campaign, that Jack Sullivan was an unstable veteran manipulating his daughter for vengeance. For weeks, media coverage had seesawed between competing narratives. The turning point came when Sarah Reynolds recovered sufficiently to testify. Hospital toxicology reports confirmed she had been drugged, not attempted suicide, and security footage showed an unidentified man entering her hospital room shortly before her condition deteriorated. Her testimony corroborated everything in Olivia's documentation, adding crucial first-hand account of Meadowbrook's operations. Through it all, Emma had demonstrated remarkable resilience. Child psychologists marveled at her ability to process trauma without surrendering to it, to recall painful events with clarity while still maintaining the essential wonder of childhood. "She's extraordinary," one specialist had told Jack privately, "not just intellectually but emotionally. She understands things most adults struggle to grasp." Jack was reminded of this exceptional quality daily, like now, as Emma studied his face with her penetrating gaze. "You're worried," she stated simply, adjusting her backpack. "About me going to school with normal kids." "Normal is overrated," Jack replied with a smile. "And yes, maybe a little worried. That's a dad's job." Emma considered this. "I think I'll be okay. I'm getting better at not talking about the bad things that happened, and I don't solve puzzles too fast anymore. You said that makes people uncomfortable." The observation pierced Jack's heart. this child consciously dimming her light to fit in, a necessity they'd discussed with her therapist. Emma's exceptional abilities remained, but she was learning to navigate a world that often misunderstood differences. "Just be yourself," Jack told her, rising to his feet. "The right friends will love you exactly as you are." The drive to Oak Ridge Elementary took 15 minutes along country roads just beginning to show autumn's influence. Emma sat quietly in the back seat, watching the landscape with the focused attention she brought to everything. Jack caught glimpses of her in the rearview mirror, still marveling that this remarkable child was his daughter. Legal custody had been granted 3 months ago, after DNA confirmation and extensive hearings. Judge Eleanor Harmon, the same judge who had initially denied emergency custody, had ultimately ruled in Jack's favor, her decision citing extraordinary circumstances and compelling evidence of the child's best interests. The battle wasn't completely over. Senator Blackwood, though under federal investigation, remained free pending indictment, his considerable resources deployed toward legal defense and reputation management. Some charges against Meadowbrook staff had been filed, but the complex international dimensions of the case meant progress was methodical rather than swift. Jack pulled into the school's drop-off lane, joining the procession of parents sending children off to new beginnings. "Ready?" he asked, turning to Emma. She unbuckled her seatbelt with determined movements. "Ready?" Jack walked her to the entrance where a teacher greeted new students with cheerful efficiency. Emma hesitated briefly, then squared her small shoulders. "I can go by myself now," she said with quiet dignity. Jack nodded, respecting her independence while his heart constricted. "Have a great day, Butterfly. I'll be right here at 3 o'clock. Emma hugged him fiercely, then turned and walked into the building without looking back. A small figure carrying burdens no child should bear, yet somehow maintaining the lightness of childhood. Jack watched until she disappeared inside, then returned to his truck. The day stretched before him. Maintenance work on the property, a conference call with Michael about the ongoing legal proceedings, therapy for himself in the afternoon. The structure of ordinary life, so long absent, now anchored his days. He drove home along the familiar route, passing Martha Wilson's modest house where the elderly woman sat on her porch with her morning coffee. She waved as he passed, another anchor in their new life. After retiring from Arlington National Cemetery, Martha had moved closer to be near her family, coincidentally just 3 miles from Jack and Emma's farmhouse. The connection felt like Olivia's hand at work, ensuring her daughter remained surrounded by those who had protected her. At home, Jack changed into work clothes and headed to the barn he was converting into a workshop. Physical labor helped quiet his mind on difficult days, and the first day of school definitely qualified. As he measured lumber for shelving, his phone rang. Michael Brooks. "Just checking in," the lawyer said when Jack answered. "Emma get off to school okay?" "Like a champ. Braver than I was," Michael chuckled. "Kids are resilient. How about you?" "Holding up?" "One day at a time," Jack replied, the recovery mantra he'd adopted in the aftermath. "Any updates on the case?" "That's actually why I called. Grand jury has been convened for Blackwood. Indictments expected within 2 weeks. Michael's voice dropped slightly. "But there's something else. Sarah Reynolds called this morning. She's been reviewing additional files recovered from Meadowbrook's servers. She found something about Olivia you should know." Jack set down his tools, bracing himself. "What is it?" "Olivia suspected she was being poisoned before the accident. There are notes in her personal files, symptoms, timeline, suspicions. She was documenting everything, building a case." "She knew they were going to kill her," Jack said quietly, the confirmation of what he'd suspected landing like a physical blow. "It looks that way. Sarah's turning everything over to Agent Davis today." This could strengthen the murder charges against Colton. After the call ended, Jack sat on a workshop stool, surrounded by the half-finished projects that helped occupy his hands while his mind processed grief. The knowledge that Olivia had faced her death with such clear-eyed courage, documenting evidence even as she was being poisoned, spoke to the extraordinary woman she'd been. He pulled out his wallet and removed a worn photograph. Olivia in Afghanistan, sunlight catching her hair as she laughed at something off camera. He kept it as a reminder not just of what he'd lost, but of what Emma had inherited: her mother's strength, her determination, her moral clarity. By afternoon, Jack had channeled his emotions into productive work, completing the shelving unit and beginning repairs on a rocking chair he'd found at a local antique store, a gift for Emma's bedroom. At 2:30, he cleaned up and headed back to the school, arriving early to ensure he'd be there the moment she emerged. The dismissal bell rang at 3 o'clock, releasing a flood of children into the sunshine. Jack scanned the crowd anxiously until he spotted Emma, walking alongside a freckle-faced girl who appeared to be chattering enthusiastically. His daughter's expression was guarded but interested, the careful observation of someone testing new waters. When Emma saw him, her face brightened. She said goodbye to her companion and hurried over. "How was it, Butterfly?" Jack asked as she climbed into the truck. "Different," she replied thoughtfully, buckling her seatbelt. "The math is too easy, but Miss Peterson said I can have special work. And I made a friend, maybe. Her name is Lily, and she likes butterflies, too." "That's great," Jack said, relieved at the positive report. "What was the best part of the day?" Emma considered this seriously. "Show and tell. The other kids brought toys and vacation pictures." She paused. "I showed them Mommy's butterfly pin and told them it was magic because it helped you find me when I was lost." Jack swallowed hard. "That's a beautiful way to describe it." "I didn't tell them about the bad people or Meadowbrook," Emma assured him. "Just that you and Mommy loved me very much, and the butterfly helped us find each other." "Perfect," Jack said, voice slightly rough with emotion. That evening, after homework and dinner, they followed their nightly ritual of visiting what Emma called Mommy's Garden, a small memorial Jack had created in a sunny corner of the property. A young cherry tree, Olivia's favorite, stood amid carefully tended butterfly-attracting flowers. A simple stone bench provided a place for reflection. Emma knelt to arrange fresh flowers in the small vase they kept there. "I told Mommy about school today," she informed Jack as she worked. "I think she would be happy I'm making friends. She would be incredibly proud of you," Jack agreed, settling on the bench. "Just like I am." Emma finished with the flowers and joined him, leaning against his side as the setting sun painted the garden in gold. "Do you think the bad people will ever stop trying to hurt us?" she asked suddenly. The question, so adult, so perceptive, reminded Jack that beneath Emma's childhood resilience lay a profound understanding of the dangers they still faced. Senator Blackwood remained powerful despite the investigation. Some aspects of the Monarch program remained operational overseas, beyond American jurisdiction. The full network had not been dismantled. "I think they'll try," he answered honestly. "But we have something they don't." "What's that?" "The truth, and a lot of good people fighting alongside us." Jack wrapped his arm around her small shoulders. "Plus, you and I make a pretty good team." Emma nodded, accepting this assessment. "Like Mommy's butterflies. Separately, they're just butterflies, but together they make a whole pattern that shows the way home." They sat in companionable silence until twilight deepened into dusk. Fireflies emerged, their intermittent glow mirroring the stars appearing overhead. "Time for your bath and story," Jack finally said, standing and offering his hand. Emma's nighttime routine provided structure they both found comforting: bath, pajamas, teeth brushing, and finally, a story in the rocking chair Jack had restored for precisely this purpose. Tonight, Emma selected Mariposa's Journey from her bookshelf, the butterfly book that had once contained Olivia's coded messages. Though they'd read it countless times, the story held special significance, a connection to Olivia and to their shared journey. As Jack read, Emma gradually relaxed against him, eyelids growing heavy. By the final page, she was nearly asleep. "Daddy," she murmured as he tucked her into bed, "do you think we'll ever be completely safe?" Jack considered the question carefully. The soldier in him wanted to promise absolute security. The father in him recognized the impossibility of such guarantees. "I think we're safer together than apart," he finally said. "And I think your mother made sure we had everything we needed to protect ourselves." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. "Good night, Daddy. I love you." "I love you too, Butterfly. Sweet dreams." Jack left her door ajar, the nightlight casting butterfly-shaped shadows on the wall, another small touch to make their new house feel like home. Downstairs, he poured himself a single measure of bourbon and stepped onto the front porch, the evening's peaceful sounds enveloping him. His phone vibrated with a text from Agent Davis. "Progress. Call tomorrow." Another step forward in their ongoing battle for justice. The path ahead remained challenging. Court appearances, testimony, the constant vigilance against those who would prefer their story silenced. But for tonight, in this moment of hard-won peace, Jack allowed himself to simply exist in the present. The farmhouse behind him sheltered his sleeping daughter. The night air carried the scent of approaching autumn. Somewhere beyond the visible stars, he liked to imagine Olivia watching over them both. Jack raised his glass slightly, a silent toast to the woman who had preserved their daughter through extraordinary courage, who had left a path of butterflies for him to follow home. "We made it, Liv," he whispered to the night. "Not the ending you deserved, but a new beginning for Emma." In her room above, Emma dreamed of butterflies, thousands of them, wings beating in synchrony, creating patterns only she could see. In her dream, her mother stood in a field of flowers, smiling as the butterflies swirled around them both. "Remember," Dream Olivia said, kneeling to Emma's level, "butterflies always find their way home no matter how far they travel." Emma slept peacefully, the butterfly hairpin on her nightstand catching moonlight through the window, its embedded star gleaming like a promise kept. Jack remained on the porch long after his bourbon was finished, keeping watch as he had in distant desert nights, but with a profound difference. Now he guarded not just a tactical position or military objective, but something infinitely more precious: the future they were building together, one ordinary day at a time. Tomorrow would bring its challenges. The legal battles would continue. The shadow of Senator Blackwood's influence still loomed. The full story of the Monarch program remained to be exposed, but tonight, in this moment, a father had helped his daughter through her first day of school. A broken family had found healing in unexpected places. A promise made at a graveside had been kept. Some victories were measured not in courtroom verdicts or newspaper headlines, but in small moments of grace snatched from the jaws of darkness, in a child's laughter, in the quiet certainty that love endures beyond death, in the knowledge that truth, like Mariposa the butterfly, always finds its way into the light. As stars wheeled overhead and crickets sang their ancient songs, Jack Sullivan stood guard over the most precious truth he'd ever discovered: that even in a world of shadows, there were paths home for those brave enough to follow them. In life's autumn years, we recognize a truth that eluded our younger selves. Happiness isn't found in perfect circumstances, but in choosing love amidst life's storms. Jack Sullivan's journey reminds us that it's never too late for second chances. Like him, many of us have faced heartbreaks and missed connections, moments where fate seemed cruel. Yet his story speaks to the resilience that defines our generation, the courage to begin again when life takes unexpected turns. The bond between Jack and Emma echoes what matters most as our hair silvers and time grows precious: family, truth, and the legacy we leave behind. Though Olivia couldn't see her daughter grow, her courage ensured that Emma would know love and safety. Isn't that what we all hope for? That our sacrifices matter? That those we cherish remember us not just in grief but in celebration of the love we gave? What unexpected second chance has changed your life's direction? How has becoming a parent or grandparent healed wounds you thought would never close? Share your story below, because like butterflies finding their way home, our shared experiences guide others through darkness toward light.